Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On this very, very rainy day, the scriptures are certainly chosen for our edification today. Okay. In the 19th century in Japan, there was a Buddhist teacher named Nan-in. He received a visitor, a very famous university professor, who came to inquire to learn about Zen Buddhism. He served him tea. He placed the cup on the table. He began to pour the tea into the cup, and he kept pouring until the tea overflowed the cup. When the professor could not restrain himself any longer, he finally said, wait, it's full. No more will go in. And Nan-in said to him, you are this cup. You are so full of your own opinions and ideas and beliefs and conjectures that I can teach you nothing. I can teach you nothing unless you first empty your cup. Now, my dear mother, who wouldn't have known a Buddhist from a Baptist, would have said simply, that guy was full of himself. He was full of himself. The Pharisee that we meet in today's gospel was certainly full of himself. He takes the most prominent place in the temple, he draws attention to himself, and he lifts his eyes up to heaven, and he begins to boast about what a wonderful, important, and pious person he is. He is completely self-satisfied. He has no need of other people. He actually looks down on other people with disdain. And despite his outward religiosity, if you think about it, he has no need of God. His life is already full. This morning, as I was driving through the rain to come to church about 7 a.m., way downtown on Pratt Street, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten my cell phone. My life is full. Our lives are full. We have a lot to do. And much of mine is in my cell phone. That's where my calendar is. How am I going to know where I'm supposed to be if I don't have that? What if I get a text message or an email or what are they called? Phone call. Who knows? Something may happen. I read the Baltimore Sun, the Washington Post, and the New York Times on my cell phone. My life is so full. And then as to have these moments where I think God's playing a little joke on you. Then you're going out there to preach to these people about the importance of emptying our lives to welcome God. So I took your cell phone. You're not so full and so busy as you think. The truth is, we all need to create a space for God. Would it be so bad if you went to church this morning and just spent some time talking to people and meeting people and some time in the presence of your God? The other character in the story, the tax collector, is just the opposite, of course. He stands off in the shadows. He doesn't even lift his head up. He doesn't boast or say anything on his own behalf. He simply says, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner. He simply asks for the mercy and love and forgiveness of God. We've all heard the first beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit. I love that. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The kingdom of God is theirs. But to tell you the truth, I never really understood what that meant. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? It wasn't until I read a different translation that says, blessed are those who know their need of God. The kingdom of God is theirs. Jesus says it was the tax collector who went away justified because all he brought was his knowledge of his need for God in his life. When we begin in our spiritual lives to empty out some of the unnecessary things, some of the things which we say fill our lives, when we begin to empty out some of our false pride and our overstuffed ego, what we find is fascinating. Because what we find is not that our lives are empty, but in fact just the opposite, that they are abundantly full. They are full of God's grace. And we can only see that when we create a space where we can recognize it. Our lives are all grace. Grace is the free, unmerited, undeserved, unlimited love of God for all creation. And our lives are all grace. They're all gift. From the air we breathe to the life that lives in us, it's all gift. It's all grace. The love that we share for one another, the care that we give one another, it's all gift. It's all grace. The ability to receive the love of others, to receive the care of others, it's all grace. Minds to think, hearts to love, hands to serve. We didn't deserve any of that. It is all gift. It is all grace. That's what fills our lives. The abundant, overflowing grace of our loving God. And when we recognize that, when we begin to see our lives as gift, then there's only one conceivable response, and that's gratitude. Gratitude that is more than just thank you. Gratitude that changes something deep inside of each one of us. Gratitude that gets to the heart of our lives. And, you know, it doesn't really matter how much or how little we have in life. The Pharisee seemed to have everything. He said he did, but when you think about it, there's not an ounce of gratitude or joy or peace or compassion in him. He's already full. We all have this need and desire to express the gratitude that lives in our hearts. We've all known people who may have a great deal, but they live with anger and resentment, feeling that somehow they've been shortchanged, and resenting others who seem to be getting what they don't deserve. That kind of attitude shrivels the soul. It diminishes the spirit. But there are others, some of whom have very little in this life, who yet live lives of extraordinary gratitude. I went to visit a lady who lives in West Baltimore in a row house. A bunch of boarded up abandoned row houses. She lives there with her extended family, people coming and going. When I walked in to see her, because she'd been ill, I noticed there was plastic sheeting hanging down the stairwell. And I began to realize that that was because the space heater in the living room, it would keep the heat from escaping up the stairs. She had very little. And every Sunday she came to church, and every Sunday she said the same thing in the prayers of the people. Lord, I thank you that I got up this morning. Lord, I thank you that I'm here. Lord, I thank you for my church, for my family, and for my friends and the people who care about me. Her heart was full of gratitude, and that expands the soul and nourishes the spirit. When we recognize that our lives are grace, we respond with gratitude, and that allows us to become generous with our lives. We are free then to share who we are and what we have with others. We are continuing our giving campaign here at Good Shepherd, so I thought it would be okay if I shared with you my theology of stewardship. Now, this has taken me over 40 years to come up with, so I want you all to pay strict attention. I've been working on this a long time, but I want to take that. But here it is. The God we meet in Jesus Christ is an all-loving, all-generous, all-giving God. You and I are created in the image and likeness of that God. Or to use Richard Rohr's words, we carry the divine DNA of our Creator in us. That God lives in us. And therefore, when we are generous, We are as close as we will ever be to the person that God created us to be. That's why it feels right. That's why it feels good when we are generous with ourselves. In my first church at St. Mark's, I had a senior warden who was a rather traditional businessman. But at stewardship time, he got up and he said to the congregation, people will tell you to give until it hurts. But I tell you to give until you feel good about what you give. Stanley had good theology. He understood that when we are givers, when we are generous, we are who we are meant to be. When I first went to St. Luke's in West Baltimore, we did a Thanksgiving dinner for the community. A bunch of us prepared food at home, turkeys and all the side dishes. I ate collard greens for the first time in my life. I thought they were pretty good, actually. And then we would serve the meal to the neighborhood, open the doors. And I loved it because what I got to do was I went out and walked the streets and the alleys of West Baltimore, handing out flyers and inviting people to come to a Thanksgiving dinner. Anybody I met on the street. You know, a lady pushing a stroller, people coming out of the store, some of those guys hanging out in the corner. I invited them all. And I can't tell you how good that made me feel. You know? That was a wonderful thing to be able to do. I felt like I was living the parable. You remember that one? The parable? Where there's a great banquet being held and none of the invited guests show up. So the servants are sent out into the streets and the alleys to invite the least and the lost and the poor and the crippled and the lame. I felt like I was really living it. It made me feel good. And then we served these meals to hundreds and hundreds of people. It was an act of true Christian charity, and it made me feel good. But this year, we asked the young people what did they want for Thanksgiving. And they said, we want to have a Thanksgiving dinner that we help prepare and serve, and we want it for the people who we are thankful for in our lives. We want to invite our teachers. We want to invite the people here at Slick. We want to invite our parents and the people who have supported us. We want to invite our friends at Good Shepherd who have come to know and who've been so generous to us. We want to thank them. On Friday, one of the people they invited came to Amanda with tears in her eyes. Said, I've been invited to your Thanksgiving dinner at church. She's the custodian in the school. And she was thrilled to be invited to come and share in that meal. Now here's my point. Just as we have that God-given DNA to be generous and giving, so do those kids. And the best thing we can do for them is to give them the opportunity not just to receive our charity, but to be givers, to be generous, so that they can be who God created them to be. In that way, we begin to move beyond traditional ideas about charity and move into something called community, relationship. A community that is based on the abundance of grace, our deep gratitude, and our extraordinary gift of generosity to one another. A community that is always opening up space for the Holy Spirit of God. Amen.
Amen.